Welcome to The World According to Mike Graham. We've got one heck of a show for you this week, but it's all about politics because, of course, we're going to have Prime Minister for a week. We're going to be doing all manner of things to do with the Supreme Court and all of that. But also, my first deep dive is going to be into that rather interesting and bizarre interview with Piers Morgan that Jeremy Corbyn did. I'm joined to have a look at some of the things that happened in that interview by Leon Emirali, former Downing Street aide, of course. Leon, nice to see you. Thank you very much indeed for coming. It was a very odd evening. Jeremy Corbyn was here in this very studio. He was here in this very building, and he was not a happy man. But he wasn't that happy even before it started. But let's have a look at what he said when he kept getting asked the question by Piers Morgan, are Hamas a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational discussion?
Are you prepared to call Hamas a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational discussion with you? Is it possible? Come on, answer that question.
You can't, can you?
You answer it.
No, it's my show. You answer my question.
Well,
are Hamas a terror group?
Listen, can I...
Are they a terror group?
Piers, can I speak?
Answer the question.
Can I speak?
Are they a terror group?
It's a pretty simple question, Leon. I mean, I was even surprised to hear that John McDonnell, sometime after that, was asked on another station if he could say that they were, and he could say it. He said, yes, they are.
Yeah.
But so Jeremy Corbyn has a problem.
I think it was the reminder that we all probably needed, that how disastrous Jeremy Corbyn would have been if he got into power. And we have to remind ourselves, he was only a couple of thousand votes, really, becoming Prime Minister in the 2017 general election. It was really tight in those key constituencies. And I think that this was the reminder we needed. This guy would have been an absolute nightmare for this country. The fact that he couldn't just say, yes, they're terrorists.
Yes. Can we move on?
Can we move on? And I get his point. It isn't, maybe he's got a nuanced point he wants to make, and that's fine. But first of all, you have to establish that, yes, they are a terrorist organisation by every measure.
I mean, you can't have an opinion on whether Hamas are a terrorist group or not, because they are. They've committed terrorist atrocities, even if you didn't want to count what happened before. Whatever they did on October the 7th was a ghastly, horrendous act of terrorism. Therefore, they are, as a group, a terror group.
And the US call them a terror group, the UK call them a terror group, the EU call them a terror group. So Jeremy Corbyn is standing out on his own with the likes of probably, the unsavoury lot around the world.
Well, he's also speaking at very many of these Palestinian rallies. And so for people who say, oh, it's got nothing to do with Hamas, really? So here's a guy who can't say that Hamas are a terror group, making speeches at a pro-Palestinian rally.
I think the reason why he can't call them a terror group, Mike, is because he calls them friends instead.
Well, that's the other thing, because he told a bit of a porky pie about that, because he made out that that quote was misquoted and taken out of context, which of course it wasn't. We'll mention that coming up in a bit. But here he is asking for a ceasefire.
There has to be a ceasefire. A ceasefire has to be both sides. That ceasefire will then hopefully develop into a longer-term peace.
What, you think Israel can do...
Hang on a minute.
You think Israel can do peace with Hamas?
Israel has been talking to Hamas for 20 years.
You think they can do peace with them after October the 7th?
They've been... Listen, October the 7th was abominable and appalling. That we're agreed.
And you think Israel can do peace with people that did that?
You would watch every morning Jeremy Corbyn coming out of his house, with his rather overgrown garden, storming past, always surprised to see photographers there, despite the fact that they were there because he's the leader of the opposition and it's probably Prime Minister's questions or something like that. And he would always storm into the car in a rage, say something probably dismissive, and then slam the door really hard. And I was waiting for the time when the door would just kind of fall off because he was so rough with it, and he was always in such a bad mood. You just think, blimey, I'm glad I don't live with you, mate.
No, I mean, who exactly looks at that and thinks this guy inspires me? But some people do. I mean, I campaigned in the 2019 election when he was the leader of the Labour Party. It was Boris Johnson. I was knocking on doors. People weren't saying, I love Boris Johnson. They were saying, I hate Jeremy Corbyn. And that was really, I think, the key catalyst for why that election was
a lot of people
successful.
say that's why the landslide actually happened. We've heard this question once already, but how about, let's hear it again. Would Jeremy Corbyn keep Hamas in power?
Piers, can you calm down a minute?
Can I ask you a question?
I'm sorry.
Calm down a minute.
If you think Hamas should stay in power, say so.
Can I ask you a question?
Well, I wanted to answer the question.
Can I ask you?
No, he can answer it.
Can I ask you a question?
It's not a puppet show, Len.
Can I ask you?
Why won't you say Hamas should go?
are a very strange form of interviewing.
Am I?
Where you interrupt, shout, and abuse your guest.
Well, you refuse to answer my
don't-
question,
What?
and he keeps trying to answer it for you.
No, I'm going to
What, are
ask
you
you
some
a
kind of-
question.
No, I'm not going to ask
Are
me
you
a
some
question,
kind of legal
Len.
interrogator?
It's not your show, it's mine.
We should point out that Len McCluskey, the union leader, was with Jeremy Corbyn because they're both promoting a book they've written together, which is a book about poetry, believe it or not. I mean, a less kind of poetic pair you couldn't think of, could you? You know.
God, I mean, Len McCluskey, what a chump he looked like as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, at the end of the day, Jeremy Corbyn is the headline act in that double act, but he was just stood there, sort of coming out with these ridiculous questions for Piers Morgan.
Yeah.
And exactly as Piers says, it's not his programme.
No.
We want to hear from those two being interviewed and what they've got to answer for.
But this is the thing. I mean, politicians have to get into their heads. You don't go on a TV programme and only answer questions that you want to answer.
No.
If you do don't do it if you don't want to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to do it, there's no point in not answering the question.
Yeah, and this is why he's just so unpolished, because he will have had advisors around him at the time.
Oh, there was quite an entourage with him here.
I bet there was, and he's got people around him, but he either doesn't listen or he's not particularly clever that he can't listen. As you say, it's give and take with the media.
Yeah.
You talk about what you want to talk about, but you've also got to play the
Well,
game.
I can tell you there was a lot of shouting that went on after the event as well, after the thing was over. But let's see Len McCluskey now, because he decided he thought Piers Morgan was a bit of a bully.
Who am I bullying?
You're bullying constantly.
There's two of you.
Okay.
Of course.
Piers.
One's run a party in the
Piers,
country,
Piers.
one's run a major union. Are you really feeling bullied, Len
I'm
McCluskey?
not.
Do me a favour.
I'm not.
It's the classic line, isn't it? Now when people go, "I'm feeling bullied," bullied.
Yeah.
I thought you dealt with that rather well there, Piers.
Yeah, he did, and it might work for Len McCluskey in his union and in his his circles where you can say I'm being bullied and that's it, stops everything.
Right,
But
we have to stop the conversation, stop the negotiation.
yeah, you hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think it was great TV. It was great TV, and as interviews go. Okay, we didn't glean a lot about anything from Jeremy Corbyn because he didn't answer any of the questions.
Well, we gleaned quite a lot, though, about his views of Hamas, because we also had to then go back and look, because he then explained that one of the reasons that he was said to have said that he was a friend of Hamas was because he had them in his a private meeting in the House of Commons back in, I think, 2008 or something like that. But so we all went and found the original clip where he said that he was going to talk to his friends from Hezbollah who had been invited, but his friends from Hamas would have to do it remotely because they weren't allowed to leave Israel. But he then said, in the future, people will look back on this time and those who called Hamas a terrorist group will find that they got that wrong and it was a huge mistake because they are actually working for the good of the people of Palestine. So, I mean, it was a very fulsome quote and it was very clear what he meant.
Yeah.
And he was a friend of Hamas and he does have friends in Hamas and he also has friends in Hezbollah, both of whom are terrorist groups currently pointing guns at Israel.
Yeah, exactly. And whether you call them friends by mistake or it's a misspeak, it doesn't matter. You're sharing a stage with them.
Yeah.
And why on earth are you sharing a stage with them? Because, by all intents and purposes, they are categorised as a terrorist group. So I think for him to come out with that was just so woolly-washy, I thought, from him.
Yeah.
He clearly does have those relationships with those people because he's talking to them.
And he can't
He's getting
say
the
that they're
involvement.
terrorists because they'll never speak to him again. And that's obviously what's going on. Leon, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Leon Amirali there, a former advisor who's told many a politician what not to say in interviews. I mean, whoever told Jeremy Corbyn what not to say should probably be fired. And that was my deep dive for this week. It's been another busy week in the New York courtrooms. Let's have Trump's takedown.
You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. I will end Joe Biden's disastrous war on American energy and unleash the most powerful economic weapon. It's called drilling for oil, or as I call it, liquid gold, or as I say sometimes, drill, baby, drill, right? Drill, baby, drill. You have more liquid gold than anybody. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
Well, that's the end of part one of The World According to Mike Graham. Coming up in the next part, Prime Minister for a week. Welcome back to The World According to Mike Graham. Coming up later on, it's going to be my apology of the week. But first up, right now, it's time for Prime Minister for a week. So now it's time to meet our panellists for Prime Minister for a week, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Alfie Best for the first time, businessman, a.k.a., I'm told, the gypsy billionaire. But I'm very pleased to see you. Thank you very much. I might tap you up for a loan later. Emma Wolfe as well, political commentator, great friend of the Independent Republican Mike Graham as well. Emma, I'm going to ask you to kick it off. The reason we do this piece, by the way, is because, of course, Liz Truss was Prime Minister for not much more than a week, and we're sure you can do better. So let's have your first idea.
I was thinking of my ideas, and I suddenly realised I should actually be Prime Minister.
Yes.
My first idea: make prisons a place of rehabilitation. Forget all this nonsense about people going into prison and coming out as hardened criminals.
Right.
Just make prisons a place where people are better, where they change, where they're educated, where they learn a trade, where they come out and they're ready to start again.
I think learning a trade is a great idea because people don't have enough trades in this country, do they? There's not enough people who do know trades.
Give them stuff to do in prison. Right. Give them stuff to learn. Give them stuff to get excited about.
Would you have more prisons? Because they could become sort of places of education.
They could. I mean, I wouldn't have really more prisons. I don't want more criminals. But if we need more, then yeah.
Well, we've got plenty of criminals who don't go to prison at all, though.
Yeah, we've got them roaming around the streets.
That's the problem. I mean, the other thing is, I suppose there are some prisoners, Alfie, who you wouldn't want to let out, and you don't want them coming back out, no matter whether they've learned how to be a good plumber.
Well, I think our prison service at the moment doesn't work.
No.
Exactly.
And they should be rehabilitation centres. There should be educational facilities.
I think there should be certainly rehabilitating some of the people that go in and who do, as you say, come out worse.
There should be a commitment that people are going to come out better, not worse. And most of the time now, they go in, they've committed petty crime or whatever, and they come out and they are literally dealing drugs, ready to commit all sorts of really, really bad crimes.
There was a story this week about a prison in Belgium where apparently the prison guards, who seem to be mostly women, were involved in orgies all the time. So maybe that's something that they could set up here and maybe people would have a much nicer time while they were in there. Alfie, why don't you give us your first suggestion?
Lower interest rates.
Right.
I think they've put interest rates up astronomically quickly.
This is the Bank of England we're talking about.
Yeah, but it's affected by government.
Yeah.
And look, let's be honest. Unless we have somebody at the head running the country like a business, the business will not perform like. So for me, the UK is a great country, but it's not acting great at the moment.
It's not being run very well, is it? I'd sack the board. I think if it was a football club, you'd sack the board and bring in a new owner, wouldn't you?
You don't have a board at this moment in time that's seasoned.
No.
You have a very young government that hasn't been through the mills. When you talk about interest rates, they've gone up by 600% in 6 months.
Yeah.
That's the biggest increase in the history of the UK.
Yeah. And of course, the Bank of England, before they started putting them up, said we can't do anything about inflation. And you're going, it's actually your job.
The Bank of England have one job, and that's to keep inflation at what, 2%?
Yeah.
And it's just out of control.
Well, at least as low as they possibly can. But they did nothing for so long because they wanted to keep the interest rates too low. See, in my view, I thought they were too low for too long as well. And a lot of people who bought houses didn't remember, because I'm old enough to remember when you used to buy a house, you didn't always know you were going to make money. Sometimes you were going to lose money. Sometimes you're going to lose the house.
The truth of the matter is, though, interest rates in the 90s were 8% and went to 15%, but that was a 100% increase.
Yeah.
When interest rates went from 0.1% to 5.25%.
No, I get you.
So the rate increase has affected people. And exactly as you've said, most people today that were buying houses have never seen the historic
No, they can't believe it.
So they're only seeing what they see today. So they can only work with what they've seen, what they've lived with.
Exactly right.
But linked to that, I think maybe even some basic financial education for all of us, but for kids at school, because lots of this stuff people don't understand.
No idea.
Most people don't understand. Even if they can get on the housing ladder and buy a house at some point in their 30s or 40s these days, I don't think they quite understand how any of this affects them.
They don't really, because they don't get taught that at all. But we've got to move on. Emma, what's your second one?
Second one. Right. Make gyms free, make exercise classes free, make swimming pools free, make fruit and vegetables cheaper than junk food. Just make a commitment.
Aren't they already cheaper than junk food?
No, they're not. You can buy huge amounts of junk food. You can buy a 6-pack of crisps for £1.
Right.
And an avocado is going to cost you more than that.
Well, there are other vegetables.
You
can buy some carrots for hardly anything.
Yeah, you can. But just make a commitment from the government. The government needs to make that commitment that fruit and vegetables, if that's what we're preaching, for people to be healthy. Well, look, we have an obesity crisis in this country. What is the worst thing that's going to happen if people start going to gyms and swimming pools? They might get fit.
Yes.
They might lose weight.
They might meet somebody and then have, but children, for want of a better word.
Great.
There'll be too many children, too many people. I mean, I'm just thinking of the downside.
whatever happens, it's going to be cheaper than the obesity crisis.
Yeah.
The obesity crisis costing the NHS around £6 or £7 billion a year, killing people. Everyone's walking into an early grave. Why not? If we're really serious about tackling obesity, if we're really serious about getting people moving, getting them healthy, make all that free.
Yeah, except it isn't free, is it? Because this is the thing, you talk about the economy, somebody's got to pay for it.
Well, of course. I mean, our taxes going... Well, I prefer my taxes being shovelled into that and being sent off for foreign aid that's actually not needed.
I'm looking for lower taxes. That's what I'm looking for. Alfie might be able to help me out there. I don't want to pay for people's fruit and vegetables.
Well, for me, I
don't want to pay for your crisps.
To be fair,
I don't eat crisps.
I think fast food is something that we all live with. And look, we're all looking to grab a sandwich, to grab, whether it's a burger or... That's why many of the multi-chains have done so well. But if there were tax incentives for businesses to run, healthy food options, you'd find more of these businesses investing into that. But it's one rule for all. Yeah. One rule for all. And if you've got one rule for all, you're going to go with the option where everybody keeps grabbing the fast food.
Well, it seems to me the only people that get away with not paying very much tax are the huge multinational companies, aren't they, who register themselves in Ireland or register themselves in other parts of the world, and they don't pay the corporation tax they're supposed to pay. They should fix that for a start. They could pay for the fruit and vegetables.
It's not going to cost a lot to hand out apples and tangerines and bananas. That's all I'm saying.
In their millions. It is.
In their millions. It's not going to cost a lot compared to the cost of people getting obesity, diabetes, cancer, heart attack, stroke.
Right.
But is that going to stop them still eating the fast food?
Well, it probably won't.
Because they're addicted to that, but then you have to talk to the...
That's the thing, it's like drugs.
They love it.
I once said an argument
addictive.
about drugs. The reason that people take drugs is because it makes them feel good.
Yeah, and that's the reason they drink alcohol, because it makes them feel nice. And the reason that people are addicted to junk food is because that salt and fat and sugar, they've got it at the sweet spot where people literally are hooked, and then an hour later they need more. It doesn't satiate you, it just keeps you hooked.
We've got to move on to your next one on tax relief, because otherwise we're going to run out of time.
Tax relief.
It's only a week you're going to be Prime Minister for, not a bleeding year.
Tax relief.
No, I'm going to be Prime Minister forever.
Tax relief for small business investment.
Yeah.
Encourage more people to take that opportunity and that chance. Give them the best start that they can. Somebody that's going to forego their job, take their chance, put their house on the line.
Yeah.
Give them an incentive to do so.
Small business is a terrible place to be now, isn't it? Because I've got a small business. I run my own company, and when I started in sort of 2005, it was a lot simpler than it is now. The red tape is unbelievable. The taxes are unbelievable. The different ways that you get sort of hidebound and kind of caught by the government, and you have to pay more tax for this, that, and the other. It's ridiculous.
As a small business, you're competing with big business on the same level, whereas actually small business needs a leg up.
Yeah.
Small business.
And you run quite a big business now, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We rolled the biggest mobile home park operator in Europe.
Right.
But that still doesn't take away the point that I do believe that small businesses.
Yeah, but you've got to start somewhere,
support.
though. But also, you must have started small.
We started at one park.
Right.
But we've grown that. I'm proud with what we've done, and we have the solution to affordable housing. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We found a solution and a need.
Right.
Businesses now, look, if you take the film industry, that has tax incentives in different areas.
Right.
They could do the same thing for small businesses.
Yeah, I think they should. You're absolutely right. Back to you, Emma. Stop jabbing us, it says here.
Stop jabbing us, right? Cut down on all these unnecessary immunisations, vaccinations, all of these endless jabs. I've got a friend who's on her 8th or 9th COVID booster.
Really?
Stop all the COVID boosting.
I didn't even think anybody was still doing that.
Just let people get colds, get flu, like they used to, even get COVID, and build up natural immunity. All of this nonsense. I'm about to take my 3-year-old for 4-in-1 jabs, which is he has to have. I don't want any more of this stuff pumped into us. Of course, things like MMR. Of course, I would keep the necessary childhood immunisations and vaccinations. But the rest of it, the flu jabs and all of that stuff for the vast majority of the population are not necessary. We don't need it.
No, I think that's absolutely right. Alfie, your final one, encourage investment from overseas.
I think we have too many people that are just coming to the UK and parking money up in London. And
buying property and not sitting in it, just lying empty.
And exactly, and it's just sitting there empty. We're not encouraging. Look, we used to be one of the financial capitals of the world. I don't see anybody running here now to invest in business and actually push business forward. When's the last time you heard of a foreign national coming to the UK investing to start up business? You don't.
You don't.
What you hear is...
Except for people buying football clubs.
That's it. it's an established business that's already there, just not different than buying.
And also, they're not
Harrods.
making money, and it's not really doing anything for the. I mean, apart from
It's not- exactly.
providing the football for
And
the
it-
community,
it's
it's
not-
not. You know, it's not actually stimulating it.
And it's not stimulating the economy.
No.
We want people that bring skill set here.
Yeah.
You know, it just seems, forgive me for saying this, but now there's not a hotel in London that hasn't doubled because most of them are filled by the government taking immigration in.
Yeah.
Whereas shouldn't we be bringing in the right immigration?
Yes.
With investment.
Yeah, how about people to work in the hotels rather than to actually occupy them?
Yes.
You know, that might be a good idea. Now, I just got to mention this. You've got a film coming out about your life, I'm told. I think it's the first time I've had anybody on Prime Minister for a week who's had a film made about them. But tell us about it.
They made a documentary film about my life and they called it The Gypsy
Is this where the
Billionaire.
Gypsy Billionaire comes from?
Yeah, and that sort of seems to have stuck a little bit.
Okay.
And but I'm privileged and honoured that Vandercom Films made the film about me, and hopefully it will give some people some inspiration in their life, and
Right.
hopefully
And
I
does
can
it
live
tell
up
the story
to
of how you got from, is it rags to riches? Is it one of those?
Zero to hero.
No, it's completely fictional. no, it's yeah. You
No,
could,
but I mean, did you have a sort of poor upbringing, I suppose? Is what I'm saying.
look, I did have a poor upbringing, but it wasn't a poverty up.
Hmm.
I had a very loving mother and father, and they done a great job with what they had for me.
Yeah.
But now, touch wood, things are blossoming.
Good. Well, I'm very pleased to hear it. And I think these are all fantastic ideas, by the way. I was a bit worried about you for a minute, Emma, when you started doing that whole kind of nanny state thing.
No, I know you were worried when I started talking about fruit and veg,
bit of a
but
libertarian.
actually, this makes sense.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe how healthy my diet is. I mean, you might not think I look healthy, but
Well, you've just been telling me how you run back and forth to work every day.
Yeah, exactly right. And,
one-
the fact is that I think both of you would be really good in government, right? So I'm going to suggest this, right? I'm going to give you the Prime Minister's job, but you can be Chancellor.
There you go.
Because you can manage
it's a
the
deal.
tax.
It's
a deal.
it's okay. I'm putting my caravan outside Parliament.
Well,
we're all going to have to move in and live there when there's no
affordable
affordable
need a removal
housing.
van as well, because I think there's going to be quite a lot of comings and goings going on there. But thank you very much indeed. So, Emma, we'd be lovely to have you as Prime Minister for a week. And as well, of course, Alfie and his film coming out very shortly. That was Prime Minister for the week. And now it's time for my apology of the week. I've often thought I've been a bit hard on some politicians, and I thought this week, before this week at least, Rishi Sunak has taken quite a bit of ire from me because I wasn't sure if he was doing anything. I wasn't sure if he was making it all work. I wasn't sure if the 5 pledges were going to come good before the end of the year. But he seemed to settle things down. He had seemed to get behind a few good ideas. He had decided to push net zero off the agenda for a while. He had decided to stop HS2 and that massive waste of money. So I was all ready to say sorry to him. But then he went and sacked Suella Braverman, the plank. And then he went and hired David Cameron, made him a double plank. And now he's claiming that after losing a case to the Supreme Court about Rwanda, he's going to change the law again. Well, I don't know why he's going to bother, because he says he's in it for the long term. Well, I've got some news for you, Rishi. I'm not sorry about anything, and I'm not going to make any apology to you. But what I can tell you is you're not going to be around in the long term. Cheerio. Well, that's the world according to Mike Graham for this week. But we'll be back next week with more exciting news.